Hi, and welcome to our special Mother's Day and Spring edition of Piano Teaching Success Q&A. I'm Gillian Erskine, and together with my colleague Paul Myatt, we've created this program so you can get answers to your questions. Well, today we have a special show and we've got lots of pretty backgrounds, and it's celebrating Mother's Day in the Southern Hemisphere and spring in the Northern Hemisphere. Those flowers must be coming up surely by now. Let me introduce our panel for today. We have Dr. Kerry Vann, who is an examiner and adjudicator and piano teacher. As well as piano, Kerry teaches singing, percussion from her Brisbane studio and is an area representative for ANZCA exams. Welcome, Kerry.
Hi, Gillian.
Hi. Angela Turner is a performer and lecturer at the Queensland Conservatorium's Young Conservatorium and an AMEB examiner and piano teacher. Angela was on the specialist panel for the recent AMEB comprehensive syllabus update, and many of you will know her work in the Exploring Preliminary Grade 1 and Grade 2 series books. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, Gillian. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Kia Leong is a music school owner, piano teacher, and professionally trained opera singer with a keen interest in musical theatre and early childhood music education. Welcome, Kia.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
It's terrific. Well, like we do each week, we're going to kick off today's show by visiting each of our panelist studios so you can see their setup and maybe ask a few questions. So let's start with Kerry's studio. So we're going to put a photo up, and Kerry, you might like to talk us through what you have.
Okay, so you can see I've got everything within arm's reach. I've got my warm fluffy coat now that it's coming into winter, and I'm using one of my grandmother's tea trolleys. I was using a little table for the music, but I was finding I was having spillover. So the tea trolley lets me have all the regular lesson books on the bottom and the exam books on the bottom. And on the top, I have a file for the daily music, but I don't actually keep it there because it lets me stand up and walk to the cabinet. I've got it all laid out, what I'm using in the cabinet, but it just makes me stand up every minute, half an hour or so. And in the percussion studio, you can see I've got my vibes and my Zalo set up, and the pink teddy bear presides over everything, and the drum kit. And I was teaching on the drum stool, but too many lessons in a row was really uncomfortable. So I got a chair with a cushion and a back to teach on. Nice. And every time I teach drums, my little cat runs for the hills because she comes to all the lessons. And when people were meeting and greeting, she was at the door to say hello, but every time there's a drum lesson, she shoots up the back stairs.
And can we meet this gorgeous creature?
Yes, we can. I'll just grab her.
Oh, it's so amazing to have this opportunity to perhaps share some of our pets and our things in it from our own home. Here she is.
This is Tatiana Bunny, Princess of the World.
And she's got bling as well.
She has bling as well. She's a very blingy kitty. So I've got to keep her in front of me. There we are. Bling kitty, and wave to everyone, Bunny. Good girl. She can go back to the couch now. So every time we have a lesson, all the kids say, can we see Bunny? Can we see Bunny? So I bring Bunny up to the camera. But going back to the photos, I've got all the music, as I said, on the tea trolley. I was using my laptop till I dropped it. So now I'm the proud owner of an iPad, and that's actually working better because I don't have to use headphones with the iPad. Whereas with the computer, I had to have the earphones in all the time, and I'd get up to run and forget I was attached to the machine, so which is really uncomfortable. So now I've got just the iPad, and so everyone can hear me fine, and I don't have to use the earphones, which has been such a boon. And I've got my water bottles behind me and my glass next to me. So basically, I've got to remind myself to move when I sit here for 10 hours without moving.
Hence the reason why you were talking about getting off that stool.
Yes, because my days will often run from 11 till 8 without a break. And so it's really important that I remember to stand up.
Yeah, because not normally just getting up to let a new student in
I wear a step counter, and I didn't realize I was stepping 3,500 steps a day, moving between the two pianos, because once you pass grade 4 in my studio, you're allowed to play on the grand piano. Prior to that, you have to play on the upright. So big incentive to get past that grade 4 level to come and play on the grand. So moving pianos, answering the door to let people in, and because of the cat, I'm the only one allowed to answer the door. I was using all these steps and now I don't move by the end of the day. It's terrible.
Yeah. And we've heard from Cynthia. You're Cynthia's buddy, and you guys are doing walking at night time to get your 10,000 steps in, right?
Yes. As soon as we finish, I just delete the studio. I just leave everything where it is. I put on the shoes, walk out the door, and I ring and I say, "You ready for DDD, Daily Disaster Debrief?" And off we go. And so, like yesterday, she had a great day and I had a less than great day yesterday. And then other days I'll have really good day, good connections, and other days she'll go, "No, it was horrible."
For those of you who don't remember, Cynthia was in one of our earlier shows, and she lives near Airlie Beach in that kind of general...
In Cannon Vale.
Yeah.
Between Airlie and Proserpine.
Yeah, and I think you've been good for her. Like, I think she's now doing 5,000 steps a day that she never did at nighttime, doing the disaster debriefing.
Well, I make 10 a day. Off my average sits about 12, but I've got to make my 10. I have to make my 10.
Very good. Good. Thank you, Kerry. Angela, can you show us through your studio, please?
Oh,
Yes.
so this is my day in, day out view. This is what I'm calling at the moment my work cave. So yeah, I have my piano to my left. I've got two screens. So on my laptop screen, I have that sort of view of my, sort of hindered view of my students. On the right monitor, I have I run Manycam, and I run any sort of other programs that I might want to share with my students, so that I always have one view clear, just to really dedicate to them. I use speakers because I don't enjoy, my ears didn't appreciate wearing headphones, and I don't really like wearing headphones all day anyway, because I have quite long teaching days, sort of 10, 11 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got my microphones. I have an overhead webcam there. I use my iPad a lot to annotate things, and I use an audio interface to control all my various microphones. So yeah, that's me.
And what is your microphone, your main microphone there? I see you actually got two, haven't you?
Yeah, I use a couple of different ones. My main microphone is the one there just to the left of the laptop, which is an Audio Technica AT2020.
Zoom in on that, that would be good. Audio Technica, yep, I have one of those.
So, it's just a condenser mic. I actually use this as a USB mic because when I, earlier in before we were in sort of lockdown, I was doing some distance teaching from the conservatorium, and I just needed something that was a bit portable rather than having to carry, stands and cables and interface and everything. So I was using that, and I've maintained that.
And what's that little thing up there in the right-hand corner that we're looking at the moment?
That's just another condenser microphone. I'm a little bit techie, and I do have quite because I do a lot of performance as well. So I do a lot of sound recording, and I have a lot of microphones on hand. And these are just sort of my bottom end microphones, sort of the cheaper ones, but they're really simple to set up. So the one above me, above the piano, was a Rode NT5. It's also a condenser microphone.
And when we were in just before, we were chatting, and you showed us some of the lovely little things that you do, because you're using Manycam, which, like OBS, is one of the you have multiple screens happening at the same time. Because you are a techie person, so you're one of our clever cats which very techie. Could you just show us a couple of the things that you do and explain how you use them, please?
Sure. Well, for this, I may just need to disable my virtual background, so I'll just do that for a second. Welcome to my studio. So I do all sorts of little things particularly for the younger students, to sort of I have one student in particular who I'm thinking about right now, who, you know, is a little bit sort of fidgety, and you can't sort of physically control that at the moment. And her family is often busy working. They're essential workers working in hospitals. So to try and keep her engaged, I will often sort of bribe her and say, well, if you can play through the next two pieces really well for me, I might, you know, put on a funny hat. And that works pretty well because I can do things like, see if you can see that a cat hat, you know, and sometimes I might do something like grumpy cat. Or sometimes for Easter, I was doing rabbit ears.
I love the way they move. That's really, really cool.
Yeah. And if my students are being, you know, not paying attention, it's like, hey, pay attention. Or things like, bam, you really nailed that section. That was great. You know, so it's doing those sorts of little things to just bring a bit of levity into the teaching.
Mm-hmm. All right. And we've got a question from Christine Mulholland. How do you do that? What we might do is we might make a video with you, Angela. You can walk them through how you do that. It's probably a bit long-winded for today. It's really pretty cool, though. I love it. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Kia, I'm so excited to have Kia with us today because being a music school owner, Kia's had to rise to the challenge of helping all of her teachers deliver students to a whole range of age groups online. And as your questions are moving more towards what to do in online lessons, we asked Kia to share what she's done with her various age groups to provide a little bit of inspiration for you and maybe a couple of ideas that you can take and use with your students. Kia, would you like to introduce your video?
Sure. So having a music school that normally has about 700 students and about 1,500 people coming every week to a music school that is now empty it's quite surreal. It's quite unusual. So I'm now sitting in a teaching room that would normally be filled with children, and we've got big screen TV, a couple of cameras, a couple of mics. So because we had such a broad range of students from 18 months up to adults, we had to provide solutions across every one of our programs. So I've made a little bit of a video that kind of describes how we've converted from being a face-to-face school to being an online school, and how we had to do different offerings for each of the different age groups.
Hi boys and girls, it's Miss Kia from Forte School of Music, and it's so lovely to see you again. Boys and girls, can you feel Bruno's love all the way in your houses? Maybe you should blow them a kiss.
Okay.
Mwah! Did you catch it?
Hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock. The clock struck one, the mouse ran down. Hickory dickory dock.
It's time for us to do some loud and soft sorting.
Wow! Look at what Incy made this week!
Oh my goodness, what an amazing spider web! Hey Incy, great job out there. I think it's time for us to sing Incy Wincy Spider. Fa la do, do la la, do la la. T flat, la la, so so, fa fa fa. And play. Do la la, do la la. One bar's rest, T flat.
Skinnamarink-a-dinky-dink, skinnamarink-a-doo.
Do mi so la la do re la do re do mi so. Come on, Andrew.
I love you. I love you in the morning and in the afternoon. I love you in the evening underneath the moon. Oh, skinnamarink-a-dinky-dink, skinnamarink-a-doo. I love you. I love you in the morning and in the afternoon. I love you in the evening underneath the moon. Oh, skinnamarink-a-dinky-dink, skinnamarink-a-doo. I love you.
Thank you for putting that together, Kia. Can you unpack a little bit of that for us and what it's meant?
Yeah, so I mean, that kind of covers what's happening with our class students. So from the beginning, it was really important to me that the connection remained, because for a lot of our students, the idea of now just being at home and only getting a pre-recorded lesson to me wasn't enough. They still needed to see their teacher, to see their friends, and we needed to see them as well. What we do is we teach, we see our students, and the idea of not seeing anyone for a whole term, to me, just wouldn't have worked. And I knew that coming into this, parents are time strapped, they're financially strapped, and they needed something that was going to give them more. So my approach from the beginning was, we are here to support you. And no matter what the age group, we had to design the program to suit the age. So a 2-year-old is not going to sit in front of a 45-minute class. And having been through the toddler stage with both my kids, you can't guarantee on any day that they're going to be up for a class. So for that age group, we said, we're going to run a 15-minute class every day of the week at 10 a.m. You don't have to book, just turn up. And you're also going to get a pre-recorded lesson, which has got lots of, so I've been learning how to do animations, of course, in my videos. And you can do that any time that you want. And then if you enroll for the term, you also get some instruments to use from home. So that way, instead of losing all of our early childhood students, we've kept, 85% of them.
Which is good, because they're the hardest ones, I think, to provide something of great value that you can charge for in this space. Yeah. And the Facebook groups, I think that's something new that we've done quite a lot. The 4-day schools have done quite a lot, but it probably is not very. I haven't heard many people talking about it in private teaching community. What have you seen as a benefit of those?
I think, parents are being bombarded by so many emails, so much information. So it's just like a central hub where I have a closed group for each of the classes, and each of the private teachers also has a closed group. So in a place like that, I could put up the link for the reoccurring class. It just is simplifying things as much as possible, so that parents know, if I need to find the link to my class, I just go to announcements. It's always at the top. And then in Facebook, you've got the chance to create units. So units to me are just like having folders. So I can create a unit week 1. And in this unit, you'll find your homework sheet. You'll find some little tiny pre-recorded videos from me. You might find any resources you'll need in these little units. So you're not having to scroll through Facebook. And any of us who've used Facebook know how frustrating it is to try find that one post that you saw about an hour ago. So it means that you can just find things really, really easily. And I'm an administrator on all of the groups, but it took 3 days to set up all the groups.
Well, you've got a lot of students. And would you say about more than 100 Facebook groups to set up?
Yeah. Yeah, we had 80 classes, or we had more, and there's about more than 30 teachers. So about 110 Facebook groups.
Yeah. But for a normal, for a teacher who's just got a certain, number of, they don't have to set up one. Well, they might want to set up, if they've got several kids doing grade 1 exam or something, or a theory class, they could set up a Facebook group for that theory class, couldn't they?
Yeah, and the perfect thing is you can upload little videos. So if you're already doing some online teaching, I just press I think it's Quick Player. I just select make a movie recording, and I can make a really quick little recording. And if you've got, say, a group which might be your preliminary grade 1, you can give them some little tips, and then you can load the video up straight away. They can children can load videos up to you or put it on the Facebook page for like a virtual concert. They don't have to show their faces, they can just show their fingers. But what it's doing is keeping this sense of unity and people being able to still have social interaction in a virtual way.
That's terrific. We've got a question from Margaret, who said, that's wonderful to hear for toddlers. Do the parents want some instruments from your teaching sessions to play at home?
Yeah, so this is where I just got one over here. I created a box. So anyone who paid their tuition in early childhood got this box, and inside it was claves, egg shakers, a castanet, all of the little things that they would need for their classes. So I know in my house, I don't have a printer that actually has ink in it. So we sent through all of the little things that they would need for their lessons in advance.
That's terrific. Lovely. And do you have Sid there?
I do have Sid. So one of the little things I did this all hit us so fast. So this meant that at the end of term 1, we had days or hours to be prepared for this. And none of us probably felt prepared in the last week of term 1, and we used the holidays, and I was just so thankful that Victoria finished a little bit earlier. So we had holidays to try get organized. So my last week of term 1 was spent making 14 class videos, each video taking 6 hours to film and to edit. So yeah, it was quite long. But for the kids, we had Sid. I'm just going to turn my virtual background off so you can kind of see him. So I love puppets, and anyone who's come to my classes knows that puppets is one of my favorite things. So we just had Sid doing little features, and so he just kind of come into the screen, and he still comes into my classes and talks to the kids. But I think that puppets are the most wonderful way to keep things fun and creative, and just to break down some of the serious barriers, because our kids have been amazing the way that they've adapted. So I do lots of really just fun little gags with Sid. She sure does.
Yes, puppets are, we use them in all of our courses because they are so engaging, but they come alive even more in this online environment, don't they? They really do add that little extra zing.
Yeah, sure do.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to some questions. We've had quite a lot of questions over the weeks about what to do with younger students. Kerry, I know you've got some 5-year-olds. What do you do with them? Is there a game or something you pull out to capture their interest and keep them focused?
Well, I recently have decided that a couple of my 5-year-olds in particular get towards the end of an online lesson and they're not engaging the way that they would in a face-to-face. So I've worked out a little dice game, and I don't remember where I got the inspiration from this for, but I was desperate because I had kids who were just going, I go, come back to the screen. And so I said, do you have any dice in your house? And they said, yes. I said, can you run and get them quickly? So they did. So it started off with the littlies who've only done the steps. So the secret was put your hand in C position, don't start on C, because you can't go down from C. So I'd say, okay, roll the dice. What did you get? And if they got an odd number, they had to step up. And if they got an even number, they had to step down. And so then when it came to having steps and skips, and it's a really good way to practice this anyway, I had them roll 2 dice, and if the first dice said odd number, yes, you still went up, even number, you still went down. But on the second dice, if it was an odd number, you did a step, and if it was an even number, you did a skip. And they think this is great. It's so simple, and all kids have dice in the house because of board games. So they just go and raid a couple of board games and bring the dice back. So I don't do it every week, but every, say, 3rd week, we will play the dice game. Or if I'm seeing a flagging child, I'll say, quickly run and get those dice. And in the middle of the lesson, we'll do a quick dice game for 5 minutes. I'll say, okay, now we've had a bit of a break. Can you go back and play me that piece again? Let's see if it's better after a break. And the kids are really responding to this well. So that's worked amazingly well for my littlies.
Oh, that's terrific. That's terrific. And that would be probably really good for their memory as well, like combining two of those.
It is. They've really got to concentrate. So where they were going off floating into nowhere land, they've suddenly got to focus back in and get back on the page, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. Kia, quite a large proportion of your students are in those younger age groups. So what's been important here? And how have you gone about providing a quality lesson for these children to keep them engaged and keep them staying?
I think the idea or that sense of fun or the sense of play, which we do in our lessons, was really important to keep going online. So with, say, a group of, say, grade 1 students, we might do a chord game where they have to listen to a 1 chord, a 4 chord, or a 5/7 chord. And by sound, they have to identify what it is. And then I might say, if it's a 1 chord, I want you to put your hands on your head. If it's a 5/7 chord, I want you to disappear off the screen. Or if it's a 4 chord, I want you to pull a really funny face. So for them, it's still that sense of play. They're still learning, but I think that every child should finish a lesson just lit up kind of from the inside. And I think if you can put little games in, it really helps. Even things like go find something red in your house and they'll just all disappear off the screen and they'll come back beaming.
Mm-hmm. Terrific. Angela, you've got students of all ages. So what do you do with your little ones to keep them focused?
Well, as I mentioned before, you know, I use a bit of Minicam. That's
fun.
That's a lot of fun. You know, and you can do all sorts of things like, you know, pretending to put a spaceman's helmet on, and you know, if they're doing a piece that's based in outer space, to try and create that real sense of character. I do a lot of mixed activities. You know, I still do a lot of sort of off the bench type activity. I think that's one of the challenges. You know, you feel like you're sort of stuck in front of the computer and that you can't move. But I still encourage my students to stand up, jump around, let's shake our arms out. We do lots of little, you know, technique type things that are away from the piano. Yeah, you know, just trying to mix up the activity. So sometimes we play around with annotating the scores, talking about, you know, sequences and repeating sections and rhythmic fragments and how many times can you see this and this and this, and do that on score. And you know, and other times we, you know, do lots of things at the piano. So my lessons actually haven't changed all that much from what I would normally do, to be honest. So it's just, yeah, keeping things light and sort of high energy, which takes a lot of energy for me. You know, I'm not a super extroverted person, so I do get to the end of the days and feel a little bit more exhausted than normal. But yeah, it's been working really well. So I think a range of activity, as you would try and do in your regular lessons.
I think that great that you're saying that you're moving away, getting, you know, off-bench activities. It's so good that you've gone, no, I'm definitely going to do these off-bench activities, because it is easy just to sit and do nothing, because you feel a bit confined. You've got all the cameras, everything set up in exactly the right space. You kind of feel sometimes a little bit like, oh, I'm a little bit glued in this spot. Particularly if you're tethered with micro headphones and things like that.
Yes, that's right.
Well, having props makes lessons with little ones interesting, and we've got a little gift for you today to help with that. So here's Paul to tell you a little bit about it.
I'm sure you've seen the teacher resource page for the brave cats, the cool cats and the clever cats, with a whole heap of videos curated just for you. Since then, we've received so many emails from teachers about how to communicate with our students, as well as what games to play in this online teaching space. So we've created an online teaching resource kit. It's completely free, and the best bit is that you can send the kits to your students, so you both have them. Let me show you. The first thing I'm going to show you in the teacher resource kit is the flashcard party, with 64 flashcards for you to print out. We've made them in colour, but if you don't have a colour printer, we've also got black and white versions. There's note names, symbols, notation and rhythm. Print out the flashcards and cut them up, or as I did, laminate them first and then cut them up. A music stand is a simple way to show your students the flashcards. I have a camera above my piano, so I'm using them on the music rest. C, D, E, F, G. For beginners, you might ask your student which note is which. I like the different coloured flashcards because it makes the student look at the clef. You could send them the flashcards to print out and they could hold up the letters to you. How about getting your student to clap some rhythmic patterns? Or, if your student has the flashcards at home, you could clap or play a rhythm to them and get them to show you the flashcards of the rhythm. Some musical maths? What a great cross-curriculum activity and demonstrates how music reinforces learning from school. The online lessons teacher resource kit is free to piano teachers who watch Q&A. We'll put the link in the show notes or just head over to pianoteachingsuccess.com. Gillian and I hope you find this really useful in your studio.
Well, let's move on and look at the other end of the scale for kids preparing for exams. Do you have any kids preparing for exams, Kerry? And what are you doing for this?
Well, I have most of my students are still preparing for their exams. I actually have a diploma student, a singing diploma, singing her program in June. And I started off with my singing students taking the advice of one of the other teachers and getting them to use pre-recorded backing tracks. That lasted about 2 minutes because the students really didn't like doing that. So what we do, I started off doing it slowly and went, okay, the time lag's not too bad. And then the students loved it so much, I just accompany them as I was. And I have to use my eyes and my brain to do my playing and my accompanying and disconnect my ear and listen to them singing. So they're in bar 1 and I'm already in bar 2, which is really doing my head in, but it's working for them. So with this diploma student, we run the piece, I accompany her as normal, I listen with my ear, and then I make her sing it phrase by phrase a cappella so that I can truly pick it to pieces. With my other students, with the piano students who are sitting later in the year, normally we sit in September, but we're going to sit in October. We might be able to do in-person exams, but regardless, I wouldn't want to push it back further, but we moved it to October. So we're still preparing everything the same way. I have a notebook in the studio. I'm just going to turn around. So I have my notebook for all of my students, and instead of writing in their book, I'm writing in my own book, and then I send them the notes, take a photo as soon as their lesson's over. While I'm dialing up the next one, I take a photo of this and I'm connecting to student 2 while photographing student 1 and sending them it on. So we're still doing all our scales at the beginning of the lesson. We're doing our fun pieces, then we're doing our exam pieces. For the sight reading, I'm emailing a little piece of sight reading to the parents at a couple of days before the lesson. They're to print out sight reading, and then when I say, okay, it's time for our sight reading, I say to the parent, can you pop that sight reading in front of them that I sent you, and so they read it that way. We can obviously do oral tests. I work with ANSCA, and so we have clapping at the beginning. So again, I will take a photo of the clapping rhythm I want and send it to the parent, and then I'm allowed to show it to the student. I say, okay, pop that clapping rhythm in. So with a bit of parental help, I'm still doing my sight reading and my oral the way I would, and we're still progressing with our exam pieces. I've got all of the exam books here, so they play their list B. I've got their list B on the piano, and they don't get away with a thing. So we're still assuming we're going to do face-to-face, but it might be digital exams when we get to it. Yes, they're all still preparing for their exams, no problem.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And how do you achieve the level of performance and musicality we need for our exams to achieve in that level? Because this is the thing that I think is really tricky, isn't it?
It is. And at the beginning, I'm on a few different websites for piano teachers, especially for online teaching, and a lot of people complaining and basically whinging and moaning. And we're allowed to do that. That's what it's for too. That, oh, I can't hear properly. I can't do this. It's not the same. And somebody said something really brilliant. We are trained to listen. So you just filter out. Very quickly you learn to filter out the extraneous sound. The tinfoil being ripped off in the kitchen is the really worst one. The blender going, the plates clattering down for dinner, and the kids playing chasey on the wooden floor that aren't having their lesson. And you filter all of this out and you just listen. You just listen. And I can also tell from action with piano. So I use a combination of aural and visual. So the problem, of course, as we know, is when they play louder, the device makes it softer. When they play softer, the device evens it out to be louder. So I've quickly learned to actually look at their finger action. And by looking at finger action in conjunction with hearing them means that I can tell whether they're playing loud or whether they're playing soft. And even though it's difficult through the medium and through the extraneous noise, even if there is no outside noise, it still makes it difficult. You can still get a sense of phrase shaping and say, oh, look, I had a boy yesterday who was bumping the end of all the slurs and he's doing grade 4. I said, can you not bump the end of the slurs? Can we just diminuendo them? And so you can get a sense. You've just got to get past the barrier of the medium to be able to do that. But it is possible. And I have a lot of advanced students. Same as Andrew, I teach young ones, 5-year-olds up to diplomas. And I'm finding actually the advanced ones are the easiest ones to do because, of course, they don't have the concentration problems that the little ones do. And the advanced ones, I'm just watching them closely. And yes, we are getting through that nuance just fine. Okay. But it's not easy, but it's doable.
Yeah. And Margaret's asked, do you find they're reluctant to do sight reading as well online?
Oh, I don't give them a choice. I just tell them what to do. They're very obedient. I think that a lot of the problem is, and some of my friends lost quite a lot of students. And I think originally with the retention rate, it was giving them a choice. I didn't give them a choice. I just said, I am immunosuppressed. We are going online, and we went online 3 weeks before the end of term 1. And I didn't say, are you happy to do this? Are you willing to do this? I just said, we're doing it. I did the same with the sight reading. I say, you're doing sight reading now. Oh, you don't like it? Get used to it. We're doing it. Off you go. And so by just telling them what to do and not giving them a choice, I find is wonderful, because it's just like in the lesson. I'm super bossy in the lesson, and I'm super bossy online.
It must be that killer smile of yours, Kerry, that gets you through it all.
Oh, you reckon? There are times I go, please, will you just do it? But yes, inside I'm doing that. On the outside I'm going, we can do this. Let's go. Yeah. And I think it's a combination of positive attitude, being really happy and upbeat about it, and most importantly, not giving them a choice. Like, this is happening, it's happening now, let's do it. And I find if you give a child an instruction, they will follow it. If you frame it as a question, that gives them the opportunity to say no. They don't get the chance to say no.
That's good. Kia, what about you? What advice do you have?
So for our, we normally hold our exams here. So we have someone from the AMUB come here, and, students are very, very well prepared by the time they step in the door. So because session 1 and session 2 has kind of evaporated a bit for face-to-face, we have set a date at the end of this term for potential face-to-face exams. But it's just, we normally let our parents know by the time you actually get to the exam room, when you've got your hand on that door handle, you've done everything you actually needed to do and what we wanted you to achieve for that exam. And the actual walking through the door bit is just the last little bit. So any of our students, if they do say we can't do face-to-face, we will just move them to the next grade. But they're doing some practice exams with me, where that will be a remote kind of exam practice. So particularly for our preliminary students who've had no experience before, they'll be able to walk through all the steps and stages of an exam with me. For our higher level students, we do have some 8th grade students who are going through in the next round. So they obviously need more support. they're the students who, if we are going to do face-to-face exams later on, I'll be providing time for them to be able to come to the studio when there's no one else here, and to be able to have time to practice on the exam piano when there's no one else around.
But you're not going to get into the online exam, taping the exam thing and submitting, well, their repertoire only exams, but you're not going to do that?
Well, I think for me, what I normally look and see what my parents are really wanting, and what they want is that entire exam experience. That's what they paid for. So they're wanting that experience of being able to, you know, come in and do all of the aspects of the exam. So for them, they would prefer to wait for face-to-face exams.
Sure, fair enough. Good. Well, there's lots of fine detail work that we need to do with technique and that. Angela, can you give us a little bit of an insight as to how you do that, you know, when you're preparing children for exams at this time with an online environment?
Sure. As I might have mentioned before, my lessons currently, my online lessons are not all that dissimilar to my regular in-person lessons. So when we're working on technique, we are still working in that sort of fine detail, even though we're online. I had quite a number of students ready to do exams. They would have been sitting about now, or actually in the previous session, which was cancelled. In those sorts of cases, you know, we've just sort of decided to move on to the next levels, because that it was more of the uncertainty. I guess it's sort of the same in, you know, if you've got a concert, you're preparing for it and you don't know whether it's going to happen or not, you just sort of want certainty. So with my students, we just sort of said, oh, let's move on to the next stuff. In terms of specific technical details, I mean, there are a few little strategies that one can utilize. You know, you can use a lot more sort of close-up camera angles. I do a fair bit of recording segments for my students within the lesson, which they can then practice with and copy at home and imitate. Yeah, it's very similar. I think we can often get a little bit blindsided by the idea of the technology. You know, people ask me all the time, well, how do you concentrate on technique when you can't physically touch them? And I tell them, you know, I'm not trying to be cheeky, but how do you do it when you're in person? You know, we've lost one mode of communication, which is the physical, but all of the others are still there. So, you know, thinking about how you would communicate that without physical touch is quite sort of easy. If you imagine you're teaching in your regular studio, you're still face to face, but you've got a sore leg and you can't stand up, how do you communicate technique then? You find other ways. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time to find sort of verbal descriptions that really give students a sensation of the physical. But, you know, you can draw upon some props. You can do sort of utilizing the body to you know, find shapes and convey support, using a lot of analogy. There are all sorts of ways, but it takes a bit of creative thinking to get started. And yeah.
Did you do anything? I mean, some of this comes down to you actually having a relatively good view of what they are doing, given that the sound quality isn't always what you'd like it to be. Did you spend much time with your students getting them to have you know, a phone or whatever device they're using, iPad, set up in a particular way or a particular location? Angela?
Yeah, I sent all of my students an email, or my parents, an email with a couple of photos that sort of said, this is the ideal angle. You know, you have to also be a bit flexible. You realize that everyone, of course, is just going with whatever they've gotten. I went online already at the end of term 1 for a couple of weeks. So, and before that, I was already teaching via distance because I had a number of students who were in quarantine, having come back from overseas at the start of term 1. And prior to that, I've been teaching online for 10 years. So, yeah, my long-term online students have already invested in that equipment. Most of them were in distance areas. So, you know, they will, you know, they know this is going to be a long-term thing, and therefore they really do invest in making sure they've got a webcam, they've got a microphone, a suitable, you know, view. In terms of my current students, yes, I spend a little bit of time, but again, you sort of live with what you've got. And as Kerry said, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you can observe and understand, even without ideal sound.
Absolutely. Well, on the subject of exam preparation, Margaret from Cobran had this question for Angela. Angela, your exploring preliminary has been so musical for teaching young ones. My student does not like the sustaining pedal in the Japanese Kyoto, as the sound is overwhelming for her. She's only 8 years old. Would this affect her performance in the exam?
Okay, yeah, well, Margaret, firstly, thank you. I'm thrilled that you're enjoying using Exploring Preliminary. With regards to the Japanese koto, as you know, that piece, the requirement there is that the pedal is held all the way through that piece. I think without pedal, this particular piece becomes a little bit harder, in fact, because you have to take a lot more care over sort of the legato connections. So I think the first thing I would probably suggest is that if your student is overwhelmed by the full-blooded pedal sound, is to apply maybe even just try a half pedal or a quarter pedal, just to give that sort of thin veil of the sound. And that might be the first step. It might just be that I haven't heard your student, but it might be that full-blooded sort of pedal is what it is. So just go with an absolute quarter pedal just to help the connections. Start with that. Otherwise, really concentrate on the legato connections and sense of space.
Yes. I think sometimes some younger students aren't all that, because it's unusual sound for them. That's why they don't like that sustain pedal, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that idea of just doing a little bit so that they get a little bit used to it is is fabulous advice. Thank you, Angela. Also, we don't really know what piano they've got at home too. Sometimes some really old pianos, even without the sustain pedal on, are really quite sustainy. So if you actually had a sustain pedal on an old piano, that could be like, woo, overwhelming. So that's the other thing to think about too, isn't it?
Definitely.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, Andrew Rumsey from Kauai showed us how to safely clean our pianos. And he was playing a piece by Australian composer Mick Dooley. We're going to play the whole piece at the end of the show, but here's a quick preview and how you can get more info and tips on teaching in our private Facebook group.
Have you joined the Piano Teaching Success Facebook group? It's where we share courses, interviews, teaching ideas, training, creative improvisation ideas, exam board info, and much more. Lighten your workload and fast track your piano teaching success. Join the Facebook group right now.
Well, let's take a question on tech. Caitlin Doble asks, which microphone would you recommend for general sound and then for piano? Kia, I know you've been very committed to making sure the sound quality is as high as possible. And so what have you done for your private teachers? We're here.
Yeah. So what we've done is that when I set up my studio, I pretty much had to make sure that we had a microphone that could adapt to listening to us speaking, listening to the sound of the piano, when there's a backing with the piano and us singing as well. So I kind of just got a little one of these. So this is actually camera and microphone in one. So this is a Zoom microphone, which is got the two little microphones that are crossed over, and it's got sound settings as well. But this is pretty much what we use for camera when we're doing bird's eye view over the piano, as well as being the microphone. They're just really simple little things. Mind you, when we first got them, and I got the first couple, then they were completely out of stock everywhere in Australia. So yeah, they're pretty hard to get hold of now, but just a really handy little thing. And this is what I got hold of for my teachers that were teaching classes at home. I think it's called a Yeti has also been really, really popular. So yeah, all I can say is test it. So, you know, do some practice sessions without an actual paying student there, and test all of the sound settings. One microphone can do a lot of different sound settings depending on what you do with it.
Yes. And Angela, you made a video about this with microphones and Zoom settings. You actually did it to assist lecturers at the Queensland Conservatorium to gear up to teach online. And we thought this information was really useful and helpful, so we included in our Clever Cats section in the Piano Teaching Success online teaching resources. Angela, what are your top 3 tips for getting the best sound on Zoom? Okay,
well, I think there's Zoom sound, and then there's just general things that are going to help the general things I think have been well covered. You know, making sure that you've got a stable internet connection, if at all possible, being wired to your router or your modem. My modem is upstairs. My studio is downstairs. I live in a remote rural area and my internet is terrible. So for me, absolutely making sure that my phones are in flight mode, my Google Drive syncing, my Dropbox, everything is all paused. And I use a power line adapter to create a direct link to my modem. So that works really well for me. An external microphone is important, but probably, also having a suitable device. You know, you can have great internet, great microphone, and using a really old tablet that just isn't designed to deal with sort of audio and video processing with that sort of intensity. So I think the 3 key things would be: make sure your internet is free of as much congestion as possible, get yourself an external microphone if possible, and make sure that your device is actually capable of dealing with video and audio.
That's great. And please do go and watch Angela's video, because you actually really, you really in that video, you say, well, this is what it sounds like when I do this. This is what it sounds like when I do that. This is what it sounds like. It was really great for everyone to say, oh, I actually like that one the best, and it's good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just sort of hearing that default microphone out of your laptop is pretty clear evidence for folks that an external microphone really helps.
Yeah. Kerry, have you got anything to add there?
No, I did think I was a clever cat, but I've decided I'm just a brave cat. So
we all got to start somewhere, honey.
So I'm finding it's been a huge leap for me to go from a 2009 laptop to a brand new iPad. So I'm finding the sound is coming through very well on my iPad, and the students seem to be able to hear me well. So I think I agree with Angela, the more up-to-date device you can be using, the better quality you're going to get.
Absolutely. Now, Anne Naismith says, each student usually has a communication book that I write in each week, what I'd like them to practice. How can the student keep a weekly record of what to practice using Zoom? How do you do this in your studio, Kerry?
Well, as I showed you, I have my weekly book. So instead of writing in their individual books, I have a big, thick book that I'm writing everybody's notes in. And at the end of the lesson, I immediately take a photo of it and send it either to the student if they have a phone, or to their parent. And I have 3 more big books sitting under there ready to go. So all they've got to do is scroll through their text messages and they have a record of their lesson. And because I've got everybody's lesson in the book, generally I know when the last one was, but some of my adults are shift workers. So they didn't come on Wednesday, they came on Friday. So I can quickly scroll through their text messages I've sent them and go, oh, your last lesson was on this date. Let's go and look from those notes. So if they keep their text messages and don't delete them, they have a full record of everything they've done.
Terrific. Well, Paul's put together a low-tech, high-tech solution for you, and here's Paul to tell you all about it.
Now let's have a look at that communication strategy for your online lessons. Once you have access to the online lessons teacher resource kit, you'll be able to take the student communication module. Here you can access a template for Google Docs' free spreadsheet service called Sheets. The best bit is it's all free and really easy to do. Let me show you how to set it up and share it with your students. Download the online homework sheet Excel document. Just click on it and it'll download. Head on over to google.com and sign in. Put in your credentials or create a new account. Once you're in your Gmail account, just go to these 9 dots up here and go looking for the sheets. Choose blank sheet. And then we're going to import, and you want to upload from your computer. Select a file from your device, and there is the file that I downloaded, the online homework sheet. And go open. And I want to choose replace spreadsheet to import the data. And there we have our homework sheet. I just need to change the name of the person and their lesson time. Maybe it's a Thursday at 3:30 p.m. And then we just need to set the date over here for the first lesson. So I'm going to put them on the 7th, which is a Thursday. You'll notice that all of the dates change down here. Sometimes you do need to put an American style date, which would be month, then day, then year. And last thing to do is to put some sort of identifying name. So I would put my student's name up here. You then need to share. If your student has a Gmail account, you can share it straight away, and it's just very easy. So if it was josephine.claus@gmail.com, here is our homework sheet. However, if their account is not a Gmail account, you'll need to get a shareable link. So when you get the shareable link, anyone with this link can edit, anyone with this link can comment or can view. So you can choose whether you want them to be able to edit, comment or view. I'll just put view for me. And then you put their email address and you can write a comment and then you just send that through and they'll get a link that allows them to see it. It's that easy. Have fun.
And that's all we have time for today. Gosh, it's gone so quickly. I'd like to thank Dr. Kerry Vann, Angela Turner, and Kia Leong for being with us today. And next week, we have another amazing panel for you. We have Gloria St. Germain, who will be staying up late to be with us because she joins us from Canada. Gloria is known throughout the world for her work training teachers, especially her theory. And she just might tell us about her latest course as well. Karen Eastman joins us from Buval in Queensland. Karen has a lot of experience in all kinds of teaching, and she holds a graduate diploma or certificate in special needs. So she'll be sharing her experience on teaching piano online, and any questions you have on teaching kids with special needs or autism, please send them through. Paula Melville Clark will also be joining us from her busy studio in Toowoomba. Paula is really well known for her work using the Delcroze approach, and she teaches students from all ages, from little E's all the way through to diploma students. In the meantime, keep those questions rolling in, and I'd like to thank Paul Myers, who's been producing today's show and is responsible for all the videos and behind the scenes tech. And on behalf of both of us and all of us on the panel today, happy Mother's Day. Enjoy spring if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, and stay well. See you next Thursday. Bye.
do.